Welcome, and thank you for joining us at Learning Beyond Tomorrow, the Education Leadership Forum by Oxford University Press, China. And in this webinar, I'm your MC, I'm Michael, and today we have the distinct pleasure of having two experts joining us to give us insights on the topic of towards early childhood education for the future, advances in technology and pedagogy. Our first speaker would be Dr. Annie Hu, a senior lecturer from the Department of Early Childhood Education of the Education University of Hong Kong. We're also joined by Dr. Weipeng, assistant professor, also from the Department of Early Childhood Education of EdUHK. For Dr. Hu, her research areas cover several areas, including new technologies in education, STEM in early years, digital play in future classroom, and teacher professional development. For Dr. Yang, his research areas and interests lies in early childhood curriculum and pedagogy, teacher research and professional development, STEM and STEAM education in early years, social-emotional learning and well-being, and cultural and policy study in early education. So I can't wait to start. And once again, welcome to our two speakers today, and thanks for being here. And perhaps now I should hand over to Dr. Hu. And over to you now. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Okay, so I'm so happy to be the guest today to talk about digital technology integration in a classroom. All right, so I'm Annie, so it's very happy that we talk about the technology, but another way, we also need to convince ourselves and the parents and also children to let them know the technology, the power of technology. So 2 years ago, EdUHK, then we just launched a kind of a creative lab and go further to think about how future learning is happening and how future learner to help our learner in the 21st century. As we have known, there are many 7C skills, such like critical thinking, communication, and also creativity, and also help the children have a kind of a comprehensive learning. So at that moment, I'm thinking about how to prepare our children after 20 years, right? Our kindergarten teacher now, after 20 years, they will be 23 or 24 years old. At that moment, we don't know the future, so that's why I'm thinking about how to use flexible learning spaces and technology to build a kind of capacities for them. So at that moment, we try to use that classroom as a kind of lab to think about how children will be learning. So here I'm thinking about the children looks like a designer. Such like new products, right? They will new more products in the coming days, and also they are explorer. They're curious. They were curious about new words, and also sometimes they're maker. The kids like to try to make something, and during the process, maybe they will be a kind of inventor to find some new things and to be an innovator and also to be a creator. So that's a kind of general, ideal picture for me to think about this project. And later we find multimodal learning as a framework to help us to bring multiple learning resources for young children. Such like neuroscience research show that learning ability can be significantly improved by using full use of visual and another kind of a test, such like linguistic, and also such like gesture. Some children like to move, or some children like to use their visual capability and also use oral or tactile. Some kids, especially the young kids, they like to touch and use the spatial learning. Everyone is different, not only written test. So during that process, we think about we need to use variety ways to present our materials to encourage children to develop another flexible learning method. That means respect each children. They have more of multimodal learning resources. So I'll give you an example. Everybody likes example, right? I like too. So that's why we created kind of example to let the audience and let user and let researcher to know how this kind of technology-rich environment can help the classroom practice. For example, the theme is My Ocean Park. in Hong Kong, children like Ocean Park, like theme park, right? So we recruit 3 kids from 6 to 8. The youngest one are K3, around K3. So the 3 kids, they're trying to use Ocean Park as topic and to integrate this technology during the learning. The first step is to explore. The second step is design. The third part is create. So we try to use this kind of technology, but help them to build up their languages and build their knowledge in 3 stages. The first stage is talk about, we give them the toolkits. We don't use the technology only as a kind of learning resources, but we integrate during the process, such like we give them internet, tablet, and also internet, which is a common technology in the school and also in the classroom and at home. And later we provide them the racquetball talking interactive board, which is kind of a digital toy. And the third one also we give them another kind of a digital toy chat block to let them to record and create information to share. So that's the basic toolkit we have used in the first part. So the first part, you see the children start their exploration from searching the resources. So we give them the internet and give them the Google Earth. I strongly recommend some kindergarten teacher can try to use Google Earth or Google Map, since this kind of a digital map helps children to extend their understanding of their current world. They will use the symbol on the map, and also use the digital vision to guide their imagination. So on that stage, we provide them the Google Earth and use computer and tablet, and provide them the multimodal learning from the visual, and also let them to real type the words and use the voice input to try to search. So at that time, you find the children have cognitive and also behavior and also emotional engagement. So this is kind of scenarios. And later, we record and play the activities. You see, we use a kind of a digital toy named the chat block. So the chat blocks can help children to record voice. So you see the block, the children can play in the flexible learning spaces, and we ask them to try to write something, the written one, and also use the chat box. The chat box can record the voices, and children can, based on their voices, and to play, looks like a dice. So they record it, and you throw this kind of chat box, then record your voice and listen your voice and get some games, instruction or teacher's instruction and children's information. So that's a kind of a playful experience to let children to record and play and also share, and also the teacher have plenty of opportunity to input the new words and new scenarios. So at that moment, you see the tools. The digital toy is not only a kind of a tools to display, but it can be a kind of dynamic way to let children to explore and let them to record and let them to review. And also, I think it's a good opportunity to have communication with others. They work together. Have a look at the first stage. At the first stage, we try to encourage children to draw pictures with their imagination. Also we give them have their favorite animals and with 2D format. So at the beginning, they share and record, and later we use 3D formats. So the 3D formats give them a kind of extra opportunity to create something and to make something based on their understanding. So kids selected you see the fish, and also they try to find a whale, which they were interested in. So they calculated and measured their own creation by use Play-Doh. So at that moment, that's a kind of a building process. We let children to create their understanding by 3D formats, use their tactile and use the gesture, and also use the oral language to present it. So at that moment, you see the changes from searching information, and the students already start to create it based on their understanding by 2D format, and later we created them in 3D model. So that's a kind of process. We call it hands-on process to let them to explore and also show their learning outcome during the process. Okay, so you see, at that stage, we give them the Google Earth, the VR, and also we give them, try to let them to build out kind of digital books and use a 3D bear by AR. That's kind of scenarios you see the children use the first time they use a VR instrument, and also they try, when they wear the VR goggle, they said, is that the future? Is that really the future? Then he said, I want to fly to the ocean park. So that moment, we combine the VR and AR, and also you see the digital map help them to have that kind of virtual understanding of exploration to have another level of creating the ocean park. So that part helped them to use the digital resources and link the real life experience, and also let them create by themselves. Later is the creating stage. You see that last step, we do the exploration, right? And we scaffold children to have more resources by virtual and tactile. Tactile means they touch it and make the stuff by themselves, objects by themselves. And later we try to use the AR technology. We apply a kind of apps named the 3D Bear, and which can ask children to combine the virtual and real life playful experience. So they can see the size of the whale, and also the measure it, and also they said the shark is same size as me. So during that kind of process, and also flexible learning environment, we have seen the kids, they have a lot of opportunity to talk, to share, and to create it by themselves. So here you have, you find that each scenarios we combine not only the written one, but give them visual, oral, tactile, and gesture. You see the kids' body language is quite exciting and also active to show them they are engaged in the learning activities. So that's a process. I would like to invite you to have a look at a short video to see how children are doing for their kind of a creation. So, Vision?
我是大夏鱼，我在日本。日本里有很多秀学，可以去。金鱼和大鱼在这里吃饭。
可以了吗？
我是大鱼。
你是什么颜色啊？
我是黄色的。
真的很大吗？
超级大。
All right, thank you so much for the video. You have seen a short video show us. Those kids are not Mandarin, mother language as Mandarin, but they try to use mother language. Nobody teach them 寿司, or they try to use the language to create their understanding and show their expressions by using their pictures and their understanding. So that's a kind of we call it material scaffolding to let children to use a book creator, let them to record and picture and the voices, and also show their understanding. But the language is flexible. Here we don't teach them word by word about these new vocabularies, but the children ask the teachers and shape it. So they present their own products by using technology. So that means the children can create the story when you have a context, that you give them the resources and give them support. So I think that stage is really fun and interesting to show that children can use both symbol and work as a kind of presenter, and also they explore it by using their own knowledge. So that's a kind of a virtual trip, let children know the resources. And the third stage, they use seesaw, beadboard, and 3D printing, and also stop motion. You see that's kind of the map. The children can use the big map. We use 4A1 paper to combine together, then let them to create ocean park. And use the B-Bot, which is a word a winning program toy, to let them to create their own travel plan by using this kind of a robot. Here, another one, we try to integrate the 3D printing, 3D printer during the process. So here, just a very quick video to let you know the 3D printing works, how 3D printing works during the process. Okay, so very quick video, but let you know the children, they watch and also observe the process of making the products. I think the process is very valuable for them to understanding how technology can help them to create it. And later, we try to use a kind of creative writing, let them to try to write something. So that's amazing that kids at first, they don't like to write Chinese, but later we find they are amazing, right? To write and also by themselves, not my assignment, not the teacher's assignment, but they try to write something by themselves because they already have concept. So later you find the outcome, they have map, and also they recreated plenty of play for map games by themselves. So you see, the learning from the beginning, only they don't know the name of the ocean animals by memory, and later we'll teach them and later build up, let them to enjoy the process, play games and search information, creating, and later the game is open, totally open by those kids. They created by themselves the ocean park, and also that's the part. Oh, sorry for that. I need to go back. That's the last slide. Okay, thank you so much. So that's my part to show you my happenings and findings. So the next session, we'll give it to Dr. Yan. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Annie. Hello, everyone. I'm Weipeng from the Education University of Hong Kong. And I would like to just follow up with this topic to show you some research evidence indicating the effectiveness of this kind of experiences, learning experiences for our young children. And the first study, we learned to know that children can learn through inquiries and a lot of design processes. And we were interested whether this kind of learning experience would be beneficial for them, especially in promoting their science knowledge, problem-solving skills, approaches to learning among Chinese preschool children. And we actually focused on a very specific point, that is making and tinkering. So we would like to see if this kind of engineering design process, integrated curriculum, would lead to positive outcomes. Okay, so there is also some information about our more broader kind of, I would say, research background. The first thing is that this kind of early science knowledge or achievement would predict their future learning to at least grade 8, which is the secondary school. So that means it is very vital for our young children. The second thing is that many teachers in early childhood field, they don't have enough or sufficient, I would say, this kind of teaching experience. And also, we had a concern about children's learning opportunities. They don't have enough learning opportunities to create, to explore, and of course, to design. So we conducted this research. It's actually an experimental research to understand whether an inquiry-based science and engineering curriculum designed for young children would be useful. Okay, so we did the teacher training. We set up the classroom environment to support this kind of learning opportunities, and then we delivered the curriculum. And teachers were the one who delivered it. Okay, so we did we used this framework. As you can see, children went through engineering design process. It's actually an iterative circle of inquiry and design. Okay, so they need to ask a question, and then they will plan or imagine. Children are really good at imagination, so they do the planning part. Later, they will try to create the work and also improve it. Okay, and eventually they will share with their peers. Okay, so and then of course, after one circle, they can still come back to ask questions, new questions, or try to refine their design. Okay, so at the same time, teachers need to do a lot of support work, like follow the 5E instructional process, to engage them, and then to really to provide the support. This kind of support is not just teachers' instruction, but also the environmental support, including positive interactions and also supportive materials. Okay, we did this research with 122 children, and then they were all the 5-year-olds, and we conducted child assessment to know whether this kind of experience is meaningful or not. Okay, so we had a very basic kind of survey to know their background information, and then we did the object motion test to understand their knowledge about science and engineering, and then we have the picture problem solving task is to understand their problem solving skills, particularly for science. And eventually we also had this scale to evaluate their learning behaviors or approaches to learning. Okay, or sometimes people call this as learning dispositions, including their motivation, their strategy use, and also their attention persistency. Okay, so very interesting measures. We did this as an experimental research. So as you can see, we did pre-test and post-test, and the intervention lasted 12 weeks, 3 months in total. Okay, so here are the results. The first one is that we found actually this kind of intervention, which is inquiry-based science and engineering program, will actually lead to children's improvement in their science knowledge and also their knowledge about engineering design, okay, and problem solving actually. And also we found that this is also quite meaningful for their picture problem solving task, which means their problem solving skills, okay. And although the effect size is small for the approaches to learning part, but still is positive, okay, but it's not as much as for the science knowledge, engineering, problem solving skills, okay. And then we conducted a moderation analysis is to understand whether this kind of effect would be moderated by some other factors or not. And we found an interesting one, that is the children's baseline functioning in their science problem solving task. That means children, if they have a higher level of science problem solving skills, they tended to have they tended to benefit more from this intervention. Okay, so again, it's supported that this kind of skills are really important for them to benefit from further learning opportunities. So we need to really to equip them with this kind of essential skills as early as possible. The second study takes another quite unique perspective, is to understand not just whether this kind of learning experience is beneficial or not as compared to more traditional approach, but we wanted to know whether this kind of learning opportunity or learning experience would lead to unique value or not. So we identified one unique indicator of children's development, that is the computational thinking. So this term could be new to some of the audiences because it's something that we found that that can be applied to many disciplines of learning and also daily life problem solving. And this is a term promoted, or I would say coined in 2006, which is really a new one. And we want to know whether this kind of new skills that can be learned from STEAM learning programs. STEAM learning program could be the one shared by Dr. Annie. Okay, so we wanted to know whether this kind of learning outcome or new ability can be predictive of children's school readiness or not. So school readiness means children, they are ready for school, so they need to have some basic capabilities such as literacy. Okay, so Hong Kong parents, they are concerned about this. And also numeracy. So sometimes we call it math skills. And also children's self-regulation. So to enter a primary school, you need to be able to focus your attention and to be able to control your emotion and behaviors. Okay, so this study looked into this. We wanted to know whether computational thinking can predict children's school readiness or not. So we conducted it with 101 Chinese children who were about 5-year-olds or so. And then we used 3 measurements to evaluate children's computational thinking, children's sequencing ability, which is predictive of their numeracy and their numeracy and literacy skills. And then eventually we also evaluated children's self-regulation. To give some basic information about the sequencing ability. Okay, so sequencing ability is related to reading because children need to understand a story in the right order, in the right sequence. Okay, so that's why sequencing ability can play a role in supporting their reading. And the second is sequencing ability is closely related with mathematical skills because they also need to understand sometimes the sequence of, for example, numbers, and to understand very important or basic like counting. Okay, so sequencing ability is actually a very strong indicator of this kind of school readiness skills. And this is actually aligned with the Carroll model of intelligence in everybody's mind. Okay, so here is a more specific version. And according to theory, the CHC theory of intelligence, or sometimes we call cognitive abilities, is because this kind of computational thinking is actually related to many different domains, including their working memory, their focus of attention, and sometimes for computational thinking, to function well, you need to also have a very well-functioned sensory and perceptual system. Okay, so we thought that before our data analysis, we kind of hypothesized that the computational thinking is related to many skills, including sequencing ability and self-regulation. And interestingly, our findings, our research evidence supported our hypothesis. So we found that according to our hierarchical regression models, we found that this kind of computational thinking can significantly predict children's sequencing ability as well as their self-regulation. So again, sequencing ability is predictive of children's literacy and numeracy skills, while self-regulation is also already part of their school readiness. So we would like to draw the conclusion that is, again, to just combine both studies. The first one actually implies that this kind of inquiry-based and engineering design kind of learning experiences, sometimes we call STEAM, which is very interdisciplinary, can really promote children's development of their knowledge, skills, and dispositions. Okay? And the second study is also important. It tells us that this kind of STEAM learning experiences will lead to very unique intelligence, such as computational thinking that is domain general. Okay? It's not just for one domain. And it will predict children's lifelong learning and their career development because already a very extensive body of evidence tells us that school readiness is highly predictive of children's lifelong development. Okay, so I would like to just to show a little bit of our vision that is according to our practice and our research. We would like to promote this kind of future learning opportunities. Okay, so to make our ECE, early child education, to be more future ready. So in the future, we may consider to provide physical and virtual classrooms that can really support children's STEM or STEAM learning experiences. This would include not just making something, but also like coding. So children could be experts in coding. We just need to provide age-appropriate learning opportunities for them. And also, it's highly possible that we can also integrate AI literacy, AI learning experiences into the curriculum to support inquiry-based learning, collaborative learning, and personalized learning. So at the same time, we need to train our teachers. We need to also make our teachers as future-ready ones so that they will be able to really provide future education for our young children. So we need to develop effective and scalable professional development programs and also pre-service teacher education programs to support this kind of STEAM education agenda in the future. Okay, so that's all for my part. Yeah, thank you, Michael.
Thank you, Dr. Hu, thank you, Dr. Yang, for your sharing. I have to admit, I really learned a lot of things that I didn't know before. I hope the same is true for our audience who are watching now live online with us. And we do have some time to take some questions, so if you'd like to just give us your, just type in your questions and we can just, I will relay the questions to the two experts today. Perhaps I should first start from me actually, just asking you about what I would be curious to find out this. Where do you see, I mean, it's great that through your practical examples shared by Dr. Hu and also through the research findings shared by Dr. Yang that we are able to see there's a lot of potential for us to engage students and children with technology and for technology to engage with children. And maybe you can tell us a little bit more about how do you imagine what it'll be like maybe a few years down the road? What do you think the next breakthrough will be? Now, sometime from now, what do you imagine that the next breakthrough will be? What do you want to see to come to this world, to come into being?
Yeah, and Yes.
All right, thank you so much. So my practical part and also Weipeng, Dr. Yang gave a lot of a theory background. So for me, I would say a kind of a technology is not only for game. That's a kind of first value. We promote young children learning. Also, we give them a kind of flexible opportunity. That means technology can serve them and to become a kind of a teaching aid or a kind of a toolkit for both teacher and kind of teacher and learner to let them know and let them use flexible, and also I think the term we call the future classroom and future learning will help the children have more freedom, also let them to have more authority to choose, such like AI. Dr. Yang, we are trying to promote AI and also coding. So that means kids, those children have the authority. They can design, they can create their own language, then to train the machine. So that means they are not just wait there to click and waiting for the answer, or just the machine train them. So, but now they have the authority to use the technology to explore the world. So I think flexible learning spaces, and also those technology integration will help them. So anything Dr. Yuan would like to add in more?
I totally agree with Annie, and I think that in the future we really need to promote playful and integrative learning experiences for our children so that they will be more ready for the future. And the second thing is that we need to do more research on this field to test whether this kind of STEAM learning experiences would be beneficial not just for the more traditional kind of skills, but also for some less known future skills. Okay, yeah.
Thank you for your insights. And just to follow up from that, just in relation to what we just discussed, and to get to where we want to be, or where you see ourselves will be in a couple of years' time, maybe, do you think there is any existing maybe gaps in the system or within the community of teachers in Hong Kong that we need to fill, or gaps we need to bridge?
Right. In my research, I just focus on the role of teacher and the role of children. So we see from my study, I've seen the teacher dominate using the technology, sometimes use the technology to display and give them information or give some drill and practice, a kind of item or task. But I'm thinking about that technology used by children, then that's a gap. Then we need to give the children have the authority. So let them to have then their imaginations. Also, let them to try and make mistakes and learn from the mistake and create something. So I think shift from the teacher's role to children's role, that will be the gap for my research. And how about Dr. Yang can add it more?
Yeah, I observed one gap that is some practitioners would see technology as the purpose of this kind of future classrooms or future education. But actually, we need to highlight that technology is only the tool. Okay, so how can we use the tools appropriate to promote relevant learning experiences, and how can this kind of learning experiences be meaningful for children's holistic development, but not just for technology use. Okay, so I feel that we are still at the very early stage of technology integration, and in the future, I hope that the entire community can move towards a more advanced level of technology integration.
Thank you. It's certainly a question we will all have to think about for the future. Now we have a question from the floor. How do you get reliable data from children in your experimental design? I think that's a great question, and maybe Dr. Yang would like to shed light on that.
Yeah, thank you for your interest. Actually, for this experimental design, we use a more a very well-controlled one. So we have not just the intervention group, but also we had the control group as a comparison. Another thing is that we use very psychologically sound measures we had not just direct instruments to evaluate children's performance, but also parent survey to understand children's development. So we had not just this kind of, I would say, we had a triangulation of different data sources, and we use scientifically reliable measurements to evaluate children's development, so that we use statistical analysis to obtain insights from our data. Yeah.
Great, thank you very much. And well, I think that will be come to the end of our webinar today. I think it's time to wrap up. So once again, I would like to extend huge thanks to our two expert speakers, Dr. Weipeng Yang and Dr. Annie Hu, today from the Education University of Hong Kong. And so for those of you who are watching us, please remember to download an e-certificate from the website. And we'll also be sending you a post-webinar survey. So we look forward to getting your feedback and comments on this webinar. And thank you once again for being with us. And there will be more sessions in the afternoon, so I hope to see more of you in the later sessions. Thank you and goodbye. And thank you to the speakers.
Thank you,
again.
Michael.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Bye.